Alright, here's the Fluke 98, the old 2-channel automotive scope. I've got it just turned on now. I'm not going to worry about selecting any cylinders or anything like that, so we'll just simply go ahead and say OK. Now at this point, I know I've told you to use the scope, but what we're going to do this time, we're going to hit the sensors. So I'm going to hit select with the sensors highlighted, and then I want to go down, and you can see at the very bottom there, potentiometer sweep test. I'm going to move the down arrow, the potentiometer sweep test, and then select. Now at this point it's telling me to use input A with the 1-to-1 probe, and at that point I'll say OK, and this is what you'll see. You zoom in on this just a little bit, and what we have now is the scope already set up for us from between 0 and 5 volts. It's 100 milliseconds per division. So I'm going to have to open and close the throttle pretty rapidly to capture this. Now, let me back up here a little bit, show you one other thing. Right down here is the repeat test. If you should find that you've got some erroneous data, for some reason maybe, you turned the key on after you had it already turned on, okay, you're liable to see something silly happen. So, if you need to, hit the repeat test, and then you can go ahead and sweep the throttle. Now I'm going to go ahead and transfer this over to the car, because on the car it was real difficult to get this screen. So we'll hit a break here and then we'll come back. Alright, there's the schematic with the TPS in place. We can see that the PCM is going to send 5 volts on the gray wire right here. Low reference is ground within the PCM, that's the sensor ground. So the wire we're interested in is the one coming off the wiper here, which is going to be the dark blue wire. Now, we are going to back probe the TP sensor. The dark blue wire, terminal C, the connector at the TPS. Now, I could use the ground. Okay, if I follow that down, I could use the dark or the black wire there for my ground if I got a dirty signal, but for our purposes we're going to just use a known good ground on the engine block. So now over to the engine we go. Okay, I've got my key turned on. Let me zoom in a little bit here. There's the TP sensor right there. Again, I've got my red lead, my scope, attached to the signal wire for the PCM. My black lead is on a known good ground. Now, as far as the scope goes, let's go ahead and reposition us here just a touch. Again, that is set up for the potentiometer sweep test, and if all goes well, when I crack the throttle open and close rapidly, we should capture the waveform. Now, what I'm looking for here is something just like that. I have to open the throttle rapidly enough and close it so that I get it all within this 100 millisecond per division set that I have. This is also called a one-shot. It can be useful in finding bad spots that you might not find using a DVOM in voltmeter setting. Now, let me show you how to do that again in case something happens and you don't get it all the way on there. Again, you're going to go ahead, let me zoom in just a touch here. We're going to hit the repeat test button. Alright, now, scope has gone back. It's waiting for an input. So, what I'm going to do next, same thing I did before, open and close the throttle pretty rapidly. And we've captured it. Now, one thing that's kind of interesting, if you take a look, we've actually captured a throttle bounce. A little bump right there occurred when I released the throttle rapidly enough. It closed, it slapped and actually bounced back open slightly and closed again. So again, we get to see the sensitivity of the equipment we're using here, in this case our old Fluke 98. So that's how you set up to do a potentiometer sweep test using a Fluke. Next one I'll show you is using the Celerity.